call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, August 16th, Shelby County Supervisors. Any of you gentlemen have any conflicts of interest on the agenda today?
None.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Mark, are there any changes to that?
No.
Corrections? No?
Not after my second attempt.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion approved. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Chance to look over the claims from August 11th.
Yes.
Any questions? Had your questions answered? Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Darren, second by Charlie. Move to approve the claims as presented for August 11th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from August 2nd. Any corrections, Mark, changes?
No, as published.
Okay, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Darren, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Next on the agenda, Harlan Community School Superintendent Jennifer Barnett, public measure for school bond that's coming up. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Thank you for giving me a few minutes to present. I just wanted to give you some information on the bond issue that will be coming up September 13th. And Steve Einison just walked in and he's going to come up and help as well.
Looked like you knew that.
Nothing like an entrance. So I know many of you probably have been in the schools lately, have had kids through the schools, and we just, it's time to upgrade and look at some facility changes in our schools. So Steve and Bambi are leading the charge on the community side, and I'm supporting on the school side, and we just want to share some specific details as to the why. First of all, the why we want these are definitely for our students, and then just to show you some things that are in our buildings that need renovated pretty quickly. So the primary school up in the left-hand corner there was built in 2010. It's our newest school, and it's got 21st century spaces. It's got lighting. It's really ready to go. The intermediate school on the right was built in 1965. So you start out in a building that's 21st century, and then you walk through the hallway a little bit, and then you hit the 1960s, to be honest. And so there's some things in that building that really need to be upgraded, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. The middle school was built in 1998, and then the high school was built in 1969, and there's some specific things in the high school too that need to be renovated.
This is a little bit about just some highlights of what we're going to talk about today, how the need was determined, how the core facility committee came to a recommendation, and then what the facility improvement recommendation was. We'll touch on all of those today.
We did select members from the community, business members, religious members, teachers, administrators.
Just family members, farmers, principals. Denny was part of it. We had people from all different walks of life that came to meet for the committee recommendation.
So the need was determined in 3 different ways. We did a facility conditions assessment. We surveyed our staff, and then we did visioning sessions with the staff. So the assessment that we looked at went through all of these different systems, and we had someone come and help us with that. De Novo is a company out of Des Moines, and they came and we also had local people help us with this. So the fire marshal was there, roofing companies. We had many local people help us walk through and show us what we needed facility-wise. And then we had the staff do an online survey, and they just answered this one question that's up there. So as we look towards improving our district facilities, what are the most important things that you should be considering? It was an open-ended question. We had 141 participants answer that. So it was teachers, paras, custodians, nutrition workers, and then what you could do after that is look at everyone's thoughts. They were anonymous, and so we had 341 answers or thoughts to that question, and then you could go in and rate them. So I like that idea, I don't like that idea, and we had 5,358 ratings, so we felt like we really included the staff in the input on that. And then finally, we had de novo come in and work with the specific teams of teachers. So what do you need in the primary as a primary teacher? And to be honest, when we were looking at these things, and Steve can talk about this as well, the primary building doesn't really need anything, and the teachers even were like, ooh, we kind of feel guilty even saying we want something for our playground. So that was just their biggest thing, is we don't have playground equipment for students with special needs, and our playground doesn't have a fence around it for safety reasons. So those were just the two things, which those are minimal costs, honestly. At the intermediate level, we'll get into this and we'll show you some pictures as to why, but there's quite a bit of deteriorating conditions. The air quality there isn't very good. The infrastructure is not good. There's 7 inches between the ceiling and the roof, so to redo all the HVAC.
To try to retrofit it and try to put in the new modern equipment that we need to fix the airflow and the electricity and issues around it, it just really wasn't feasible. We'd have to start changing the structure at that point, and changing the structure creates some other issues that we'd have. So it really wasn't, there's not a great opportunity to do what we needed to do without spending a whole lot of money that we'd still be dealing with old bones with some upgraded parts of it.
And the middle school's in pretty good shape. The middle school gym is not air conditioned, and there's some leakage that we need to get fixed that we can do. And then the high school, so the high school and the intermediate were the two big ticket items, I guess, and we'll talk a little bit more, but the high school has metal walls. In some classrooms, there's only 2 outlets, so that doesn't suffice when we're dealing with kids with technology. And the auditorium needs updated. I'm sure some of you have been in there lately, and just improving and modernizing our spaces.
So this is where I got involved. I'm not a member of the school. My wife and I moved back here 13 years ago. She can talk a little bit about the why. The main reason we moved back was the school system. We both had great jobs, lived in a great part of Omaha, looked at coming back here, and we just we wanted our kids to go to school in Harlan because of the incredible teachers, the success they've had over the years in academics and athletics and band. So this is where we got involved. It was back in January. We had a core facility committee that Dr. Barnett mentioned. This was made up of school teachers, principals, administrators, just parents, business owners, farmers, just lots of different crosscut across society. We did lots of different exercises. We met for many weeks starting in January. First meeting, they just came to us with all the recommendations that the teachers had, and they asked all of us, hey, this is what they wanted. We want you guys just to individually rank them on which ones of these you think are important. So this was just the first stepping stone. This was another meeting that we had, the second meeting. We talked a little bit about what the funding scenarios were. What was the appetite for the community as far as how much money would we get through in a bond, and how much would the district be willing to pitch in to help support that and lessen the burden on the community citizens. We looked at different project scenarios as far as building new schools, renovating the ones. I will say I was really impressed from the very, very beginning. De Novo who led this was very open to, hey, this is your school, this is your money, it's your community. We're open to very minimal adjustments, or completely brand new schools. This is your society, your community, and we want you guys to lead this. So we went through lots of different options.
And one of the things we did talk about is the last bond issue was asking for a $28 million bond. This one, you'll see, we were trying to be very reasonable and respectful of the dollars that were spent, so this is less than that, and then the district is also going to put in a third of the requirement for the total scenario.
This is just another exercise we did where we broke up into different groups. You can see that there's a lot of different groups there. They came to us and they said, there's about $8 or $9 million worth of stuff that has to be done. Whether this bond gets passed or not, we have to spend these $8 or $9 million to fix these types of things. So at each school, here's what has to be done. And then here's all these other cards that have different amounts of things that could be done, we think should be done, and you have to prioritize. We can't do it all, or we're going to be at like $50, $60 million. So you have to take these apart and see what's important to you, each team went up and presented to everybody, and surprisingly, we were all fairly close to where we came. There were some differences. We really looked at possibly even building a new high school, because everybody said, well, that's the face. When people come from other communities here for athletic events, band events, academic events, they see the high school. They don't see the intermediate things. You typically, the parents do, but others don't. And we want to show it off to attract teachers, to attract students. But this was one of those exercises that we just said, you know what, that's not going to happen. It's not realistic for what our community needs and wants right now. So this is the consensus. She mentioned on the far left, you can see that the primary school, the accessible playground is needed. We have a lot of children with disabilities, and they can't partake with the other kids when they go to the playground. Doing some safety fencing, and then there was also some art and music room required maintenance that needed to be done there. Next is the intermediate school. We decided we wanted to build approximately a 45,000 square foot new building, create a safer, more modern learning environment for our students and teachers. Renovating the outdated building that was built in 1965 was, we were looking at about 80% of what the cost would be to have a brand new building. So estimated cost was about 11 to 14.5, and to build a new building was about 14 to 15.5 million.
And this is the same size building as we currently have, about 45,000 square feet, so nothing new. It would just have different learning spaces. Up at the top here, like this might be a 3rd grade wing, a 4th grade wing, and a 5th grade wing, and they would be near each other. I know Mr. Mosier has said, and Ms. Hightoff have said that, you know, the current state of where it is, the 4th grade is on one side of the hall, or one side of the building, and another 4th grade teacher's on another, so they can't necessarily always work together as teachers.
And we'll talk a little bit more later about that setup there. Middle school, just really required maintenance as far as if you've ever been to a game there. The gym is not air conditioned. It can be pretty brutal when you're going to games. Media center renovation and other required maintenance with some electricity and issues like that. The last one is the high school. Renovate the auditorium. We'll get into that. We'll get into the details, but renovating the auditorium, renovating classrooms on the 1st and 2nd floor, including the science rooms. The science rooms are still, I don't know if anybody read the newspaper, Jeff Ball, the science teacher, was quoted in there. He went to school quite a while ago, and all the equipment, all those things, everything's still the same that when he went to school there. And there's some safety issues as far as like exposed gas lines and things like that. So renovating the media center, revising the secured entrance, making a secure entrance, Hall of Excellence stretch. This is one of the things that wasn't a big money part, but it was one of those parts that we felt it was important to show off the tradition and the history that Harlan has. As I mentioned, that's why we moved here. So they talked about from where you come into the school by the principal's office, wrap around to the district office. That's where most people come in when they go to a wrestling match, a play, a musical, one of those things. They usually enter that corridor. If you've been in there, we have more trophies than we have space for right now. There's some of the trophies are down hallways. They've talked about making this Hall of Excellence and really making that look nice, showing off our tradition, having all of our awards out there for people to see. Renovating the locker room, we've got to bring those up to code, and then some other required maintenance. We talked about, this is the minimal thing at the primary, was just the playground and making it accessible so every kid that goes to school there can feel part of the group when they go out to play during the day. The intermediate school. So this would be serving grades 3, 4, and 5. A new neighborhood style learning environments. There's been all kinds of studies. When you go to, most of us when we go to work, we manage work and projects with collaborative feedback. Not many people anymore work by themselves and just handle all their projects by themselves. So that's the way they're teaching teachers to teach. That's the way studies have shown that kids these days are learning the best, is when they can collaborate with each other. So that's what those neighborhood style setup is about. They each have their own classroom. They can open up to each other. Right now we're struggling with teachers all over the United States. There's a shortage of them. In this setting, a teacher could open up a wall, maybe if one teacher's not there, and they could help teach 2 rooms together, or 2 teachers could join their groups. If somebody needed to step out with a specialist and work, they could go right outside the room and work in that common area, or all 4 of those teachers would send kids out to work together in that common area.
Where's this at, Steve? Where we
So
talking about
this-
building this?
So this is the old, this is the drop off currently over here. This is like that's the new building right there.
Okay.
It's right there. The second grade's right at the point. It's gonna connect to that.
The playground area.
It's currently just a big open field and maybe like a tiger ball there.
Okay.
That was one of the other nice things about this, when we looked at the costs. Doing what we need to do to the intermediate school, kids would be displaced. There's been all kinds of studies done, especially always, but recently with COVID, kids that are displaced and the lack of what they miss. They're not where they need to be because they were displaced from their typical learning environments. So if we renovate it, we'd have to buy rent pods or find somewhere for these kids to learn while we were doing the renovations. This way, we're pretty fortunate with all of our space at the high school here, where we have that space. We can build a brand new building. Kids can just learn like they have done the whole time. When it's completed, move the kids in. The goal is to tear the old intermediate down and then put the playground there.
Steve,
Yes?
what's your projected number of students 5 years from now?
So we just did a study last night, and the projected number is about 1350.
What is it today?
5 years from now, or 20 years? Sorry. Did you say 5?
Well, either one. Isn't it?
20 years, it's about 1350. 5 years, it's about 1450. And right now, it's about between 1500 and 1550. So
So it is a decrease.
it is a decrease. The enrollment study did show, though, that we would still need 5 sections of classes. So we still have an average of about 100 kids per class. So we did look into that. Good question. This
Did you
is
get
just,
the birth rates at the hospital
Yep.
for the past
Yep.
5 years?
yeah. This is just examples of what those pods could look like. So this is an actual classroom here, and then it would connect to another classroom that is kind of over here or behind, and then you can work with. So this is, I don't know if you can see here, maybe a speech teacher is working with someone on speech versus having to walk them down to another office or have other office spaces. Anything else on that? And then, again, like Steve said, the collapsible walls that you could collapse and work together. If you're 2 third grade teachers or 3 third grade teachers, you can work together.
We did have quite a few, the school board members did tour some facilities that De Novo has worked on in our region. They went to, I don't know if it was this exact school, but a lot of schools that had spaces like this. There's concern about that glass wall. Is that distracting? Is it, one of the issues that we have at the high school, some of our schools, is sound going through our metal walls. If you talk to any teachers that work at the high school, they will tell you they hear everything that's going on in the other room. The kids are constantly distracted by the kids in the other room or what's going on. They were really impressed. They said they were there meeting outside that room. The kids never turned around to look at them. They couldn't hear the teacher teaching. The kids evidently couldn't hear them having their conversations because they weren't distracted at all.
Yeah, we asked students, we asked teachers, we asked administrators if that was a distraction with just all the windows and all that, and they said no. They actually liked the light coming in, and so school.
So the biggest thing there is the media center. When most of us went to school, it was all books and desks and even maybe encyclopedias. These days, kids don't carry books to school. They've got a laptop in their backpack. They don't use lockers for the most part. This is what they typically look like, and this is just an idea of what it could look like or what some schools are doing now. They have more outlets, more places for kids to plug in their laptops, other electronic devices, brightening it up in more collaborative spaces. High school, the auditorium. I know the last time that the bond was looking to be passed, there was concern about really taking it, redoing the entire thing. What this construction management company said is, you guys have a beautiful auditorium, the bones of it are good. When they build stages for other schools, they're building them to our specs as far as the height of the stage. There's a lot of space behind it for people to put on what they want to do as far as entertainment. But obviously it needs some updating. So the real goal here was to update the colors, make it look nicer, really do with the acoustics and the lighting. Those need to be fixed as well. So this is just a sketch of what it might look like. There's more seating here. We've learned through this process, we presented to the teachers, and one of the teachers that's in charge of this part of the school said, and some other teachers told us, other schools in our district or around us, Pella, I guess isn't our district, but Pella is an example. They host show choirs, and it is a huge event. Schools come from all over the state of Iowa, and they make a ton of money at these events. A lot of people come there, they show off their schools. It brings people in to stay overnight. We do our local play community theater in the summer here. People are coming in, eating at the restaurants, staying at hotels. Harlan currently does not have the capacity to host one of those events. So it's something that we're really missing out on to bring people into our community, make some money, and show off our community and our school. This will allow that. This is just one of those, I mentioned kids that generally don't use lockers anymore. In fact, some people say that they're more of a risk as far as as far as the safety concern when you have lockers. Kids have backpacks with their laptop in it, and that's really about it. So we've talked about taking out some of the locker bays. There's a lot of them in the high school, and making that like an open, communicative, collaborative space where people kids can work together. We've got a couple slides of that, I think. This is another example, just a modern classroom. I'm trying to speed through so I can keep you guys here all day. Again, this is another school that was worked on where they have gotten rid of locker bays and just opened it up and made common spaces for people. If you're at a theatrical event or if you're at a sports event, there's a break, a place where you can visit, a place where kids can collaborate. So what does this mean to the community? This is kind of the nuts and the bolts of it. It's a $32 million project total. 70% of that will be in the bond that's going to be on the ballot on September 13th. The district is going to pitch in 30% of that. As far as your house value, it's going to be $9.57 for 100,000 per 100,000 assessed value per month. For crops, it's about 27 cents average acre per month. We were asked, where is this money coming from, or where's the money going? The high school is about 14.3 to 15.8. Middle school is approximately 2 million. The new intermediate is about 14 to 15.5, and the primary school is approximately 200,000. So I'll start here in the right-hand corner. We get asked a lot, where does this compare to the last bond? In 2018, there was a bond for $28 million. That was proposed. It did not go through. That was 100% property tax. It was going to be about $4.05 tax rate increase versus what we just talked about for this bond. 70% of the project funds are going to be in the bond issue, so $22.9 million will come from the bond. That's obviously less than the $28 million that was asked for in 18. And then the school district is kicking in 30% of the project funds, which is $9.1 million. That'll come from the SAVE dollars. That's the penny tax that we have been paying already. We're going to continue to pay it. It does not have any tax implications to as far as your property taxes. In order for this to get passed, there's going to be two questions on the ballot. Question one is the general obligation bond referendum with a 2.33 tax increase. We would need a yes on that. The second question is to adopt a RPS, a revenue purpose statement, with 0% tax or $0 tax impact. That is something that we have to renew from time to time. It is not something we need to renew now. Through all this, some of the feedback we've had about concerns in the 2018 bond was we just didn't feel like it was transparent. We didn't know what was in it. Nobody really approached us about it. We need that to get passed at some point. So we thought if we're going to be really transparent, we could do it next year or the year after, but let's just do it now. Let's renew it. It's the same thing we have going on. It's not changing, but we're asking to renew that revenue purpose statement now.
Basically, that just allows the district to use those SAVE dollars as we choose and the community chooses versus the state or the Department of Ed telling us how to use it. So, and we've passed it several times, so.
Steve, the ballot will be two-sided, and it says in big letters, turn ballot over. But my experience is some people do not turn them over, so pay attention. There's two issues on it.
Good to know.
The bond's on front.
This one just shows so how do we compare? This was everybody in the schools in our district. Currently, we're at 12.30. The state average is 14.28. We're at the lower end of the middle of our district. If we were to pass this, it would put us at 14.66, which is the higher end of the middle. The schools you see that have a little higher than us are the ones, most of them have made some pretty significant improvements and recommendations in new builds recently. Timeline, and you tell me if you want to jump in. The vote is September 13th. If it passes, the design process is going to take about 6 to 8 months. Phase 1 would start with high school partial renovation in summer of 2023. You'll notice with all of these phases, we're trying to lessen the impact on the students' learning. So that's why the high school renovation will start in 23 during the summer when they're not in school. Phase 2 will be the intermediate school instruction. That will start in May of 23 and possibly go to January 2025. Could open the second semester of 24 or maybe the 25 school year. And then phase 3 would be high school and middle school renovations in the summer of 24, possibly the summer of 25. That's what we're looking at right now. So what happens after that? They have if this goes through, and once we get it built, there'll be a continued preventative maintenance contract in place where some of the contractors and de novo will come out with an annual review of it and make suggestions. They'll inspect what they've done, see if there's any areas that they need to shore up so that we don't have major issues. That'll happen, like I said, every year. They'll have an annual budget for review and maintenance, and any major surprises that come up, they'll talk about those as well.
Part of our contract with de novo is that they will help us project out. So what are the next projects? What do we need in 5 years? What do we need 1 to 2 years? What do we need in 5 years? What are we going to need in 10 years? So that prioritization will help us as well. We do have a new head of facilities and maintenance, Mike Dare, and he's done a great job, just hired last year. When I was hired, I did not hire him, but he's awesome, and so he has really helped us in this whole process and is looking forward to hopefully getting new facilities so that he can stay on top of everything and keep things up to speed.
See, why don't we look at what the curriculum is and what they're teaching our kids today, rather than worry about the facility. I've got grandkids and they can't even write the old way or read. And that's really progress.
John, can I ask? I was going to ask them, they have some public hearings coming up, and we agreed to have them come today to make a presentation, but they have several public hearings coming up. You come and ask all the questions you want, but we have a meeting, we allowed a half hour today for, okay? And I'm not trying to cut you off.
No,
I'm just saying this is a presentation, or you can contact them.
I'll come talk to you after the meeting, and I'll talk to you.
And then also, what meetings do you have coming up, public hearings?
So Erling is next Thursday,
And
And it's in the paper, I've seen it in the paper on the schedule.
and then we're at United Methodist.
So I mentioned transparency. There's nothing we want more than to get all the information out, help you guys make an educated decision. We're passionate about it. We feel very, very, that this is a really important issue. We've already spoken to Westphalia, Defiance, Panama, Portsmouth. We were speaking here in Harlan on August 23rd at First United Methodist Church. On the 24th, we will be at Troy's in Erling. And on September 12th, we'll be back in Harlan at the First United Methodist Church. Those will be in the newspaper and they're on social media as well.
And you can always contact anybody on the committee or up at the school. And I'm just going to throw this in there and then we're going to move on. Okay. I was asked to be on the core committee just because I was a school board member for 12 years. And I was on the board when we passed the middle school bond and when we passed the primary bond. When the middle school bond was passed around 96, it was all on property taxes. Bonds are 20-year bonds. And our district worked really hard for 9 years to get the sales tax in the state of Iowa, and that came in. Well, in 1998, we were the first district to use the sales tax dollars to refinance our school bond. and we took a 20-year bond down to 10, eliminated 8 years of interest, and saved the district $1.8 million in property taxes. Then the rest of the 10 years was all in sales tax. That was the last year, 1998, that property owners in this school district have paid on a bond issue, okay? Because in 2008, when we passed the primary school bond, that was 100% on sales tax. And I think they have about, don't quote me, but maybe 8 years left of sales tax dollars that needs to go to that. But they freed some dollars up in the last 3 years that now a third of this bond, this $32 million bond, is going to be used by sales tax, not on property. The last one 3 years ago for $28 million was 100% property tax. This one would be for $22 million on property taxes. So it's significantly lower. They're using their sales tax dollars, and this district has done a really great job of using the sales tax dollars, what it was intended for, because it was intended for property tax relief, bond issues, and upgrading your facilities. And to give another point is, a few years back, we renovated Merrill Field. It was $1.3 or $4 million. We did not use 1 penny of property taxes or sales tax to do that. We did it all through fundraising and grants. And when you look around the state of Iowa, most school districts that have built their facilities, athletic fields and stuff, they use the penny to do that. They did not do that then, so they would have it for a bond issue like what's coming up today. So everybody needs to remember that. Okay? Anything else?
No, I'll say real quick, we rushed through this presentation because I wanted to respect their time, and we just hit the half hour, so I'm more than happy to come talk to you in your space. If you have coffee meeting, coffee groups, I'll come there, and you can come to one of our public hearings. It is important to us to make sure that you understand it, and I'm more than happy to do that. This is the last slide. You're able to vote on September 13th at the courthouse, at your polling, my wife's the expert on the voting.
No, yeah.
But you can start voting August 24th to September 12th at the auditor's office. No matter where you live, you can go to the auditor's office and vote absentee there. Doesn't matter where you live. You can also get an absentee ballot mailed to you, but if you do that, make sure you get it done in time, and there's no guarantees because you have to ask for it, and then it has to get mailed to, and they have to mail it back in. Is that the last slide?
Yeah.
So thank you guys very much for your time. Appreciate it. Like I said, more than happy to take any questions outside of this meeting somewhere.
Thanks, Steve, Jennifer. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Todd Deline, Shelby County Chamber Industry Report. Morning, Todd.
Good morning. Well, this is actually going to be very quick, so.
No, you're fine.
Had a couple of items. One is in regards to the school. Just, we're looking forward to tomorrow. We'll be having our breakfast that we have every year with the teachers to welcome them all back to school and get a chance to meet new staff members and that type of thing. So that'll be great. We'll do that tomorrow. And then also during our board meeting today, we're going to be discussing some dollars that we had budgeted to use for just economic development opportunities, and one's going to be, I think I mentioned it earlier, the home-based Iowa program. And what we're going to be looking at in our meeting today is the opportunity to provide some small grants to veterans that start new businesses in Shelby County. And the way that we'll do this is, we'll work with them on their business plans and stuff to get them up, get them running, and then at the grand opening of their business, we'll be able to present them with a small check to help cover the cost of opening their business. So again, we'll be discussing that at our meeting today, getting kind of the final details of that done, and then looking forward to moving forward with that and making that part of the home-based Iowa program. We'll also be coming back to this group in September. That's part of the kickoff for home-based Iowa, just to get the supervisor support to put that program in place for the county. So,
Do you want that be yet, Todd?
I think we were looking at the second meeting of September is when we're going to come for that. So that's it for the chamber for today. Just like I said, we'll be working on that program, and then also looking to hosting the breakfast tomorrow for teachers. It'll be a lot of fun.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Todd. Next on the agenda, Taryn Knapp, our IT coordinator, is going to give us some updates. Morning, Darren.
Good morning. I just wanted to do an update on end of fiscal year last year, beginning of this year, projects going on. The county website is up and running. So I know the board minutes, agendas, absentee ballot requests are all on there. Some of the other offices have applications available on there now. Some of the pages might not be fully finished, but for the most part, the website's functional.
Updates. I mean, I know some pages in the past haven't been updated.
Yes, they are working on that. I got an email last week that they were switching it over to another version in the background. So then I know one of the pages still points to the chamber page for contact us. So that'll be updated with all department heads and their email addresses and phone numbers, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I think there was another page that pointed to the chamber also that will be removed.
Okay.
Computer life cycles are all up to date, so we've been working on replacing old monitors. With the newer computers, some of the monitors aren't supported, and they've been there, some probably 20 years. So those are being replaced. With software and everything updating, the current servers that we have don't support some of our vendors. One being our recorders program where they input all of the documents that are recorded is in a version 2019, when a 2022 is available, but we can't update it because of the server. So we started the server replacement, which I was told there's 4 primary servers that will start to cycle out over the years. So this year we'll do 1, and that'll affect the Eagle Recorder program, our GIS that the HMU uses for their field work is unsupported right now, so that'll be replaced, and a program for the sheriffs and jail, Shieldware, that I'm not familiar with, but that'll also go on the new server.
I know we've been having issues with Tyler. How are we combating that?
The new heating upgrade.
You're right.
I know Mark's had a couple meetings with Tyler. Some I think are on the back end of, certain counties have different ways of dealing with things. I know one was that, I don't know.
So we get some resolution, or they've been helpful, or?
It's slow as molasses. That's the whole issue. It gets fixed. We have deadlines. Iowa code has deadlines we're required, and you get nervous when it starts getting close.
Right.
And the louder you get, the more they react, and it just gets tiresome.
So what are we going to do to help with that?
Maybe we need to bring them in here and have a talk with them.
I'm assuming that their excuse is that they're short on personnel as well, just like everybody else.
Yeah, that's
As
their
far as
excuse.
help desk.
Most of
And
the
you can
staff
tell-
works from home.
Yeah.
When you have simple questions, you can tell you're getting new employees because they don't know what you're talking about, and they read to you from the manual that you've got right in front of you, and you just, yeah.
Have you relayed that to Taryn, and so there can be some communication with them?
I go directly to the salesperson when it escalates that far, and he helps where he can. So he's the salesperson, not a help desk person.
So how are we going to remedy this?
I'm just staying after it.
Okay. I mean, if you have deadlines, I mean, we got to get these things done.
Right. We've got, the big one is September 30th for the annual report filing.
Okay.
So we've got a month and a half. I talked to the treasurer, her steps that she has to do first. She said yesterday, fingers crossed, it's going okay. And we're usually done with all that by this time of year. That's a nerve-wracking thing.
Right. So backs against the wall.
We feel that way,
Right.
because we're usually done with that by now.
Right. Well, if you, after this meeting, if you can visit with Taryn and see if there's anything else we can do, or if he needs a board's interaction there, just let us know. Okay? Okay.
It's constant panic.
Okay. I know it's
Do
been
we
a
feel
challenge.
like the software is good software, it's just that we're not getting the help on how to run it?
We were told for 3 months, and by their expert, that everything was set up right. And we got a different person helping us because that person got promoted within the company. And he says, no, this is not set up right. And they fixed it. And now we're finding little things here and there. Now, since they did that, we question everything. Is this set up right? Is this set up right? And that takes some time because they have to escalate the problem, research it,
Right.
and see if it was set up right.
Okay.
And that's just, if I go into more detail, it won't make sense.
Okay. Like I said, if anything we can do to help, please let us know, okay?
Hold back funding about the only thing I can think of. I mean, if we're paying them monthly or whatever it may be, I mean, of course, yeah, I don't know if that's gonna be a solution either.
Well, and I mean, anything you switch over, whether it's a financials program.
Right, but
That
Yeah, I
you're
know,
gonna
there's
have,
issues.
the first year is gonna be a transition year
Yeah.
of getting it all. It's just,
Maybe one thing you could do is reach out to them and let them know we have these deadlines that we have to meet. You know, if there's a sense of urgency there.
yeah, and I don't know the specific things that are,
Okay.
going wrong.
The frustrating thing is this same company, when you call in about real estate, they're right there, they're on it, they help you, it's fixed.
So you take the good with the bad a little bit there.
Yes, so
Financial's not where we want.
I know they're capable, but they just can't get it together for us for some reason.
Okay, I hope that improves. Okay. Anything else, Taryn?
That's all I had.
Okay, I appreciate the report. Thanks, Taryn, for the
Thank you.
work you do. Secondary roads report, Brandon. And just to remind anybody that came in after the meeting started, make sure you have your cell phones on vibrate or they're shut off. Okay?
Good morning. Just a brief update from me this morning. Guys are up, we've been working with Maple Road. Should get finished on that before 1:56 after that. Like to move away, but we actually found a good source of water in a Irwin area, so been using that. We'll start ranching out, hopefully and get more rain and it helps refill, but we'll see. And then next week we're renting a reclaimer from Western to do some oil roads that we tore up and they need some more help. So we've done that in the past and they work with us really well. So it does a really good job. Other than that, we had some issues with Fort Calhoun. They were struggling with people and parts and just seemed like nowhere had rock. We were getting some out of Atlantic, but it was kind of waiting in line, catching it off the belt. So they're back up and running. We're stockpiling in Kirkland currently, mixing some gravel with white rock. And it's working well. It's later than we wanted to, but nowhere had white rock. And we didn't want to haul in a bunch of gravel and then mix it with a loader. It's a lot easier to do on the fly. So, and then I guess with this rain, it was a nice rain out, hitting some soft spots. If anyone's got any, let us know. We'll be out in the next couple days with hauling rock. One of the pipe crews working on 1400 Street west of 59. I believe he's going to pour the head walls on it today. So then they'll set up a day and then backfill. We'll be out of there. And then the other pipe crew, he's up on M36 north F32. He's fixing a collar on the drop inlet. We could save the culvert. It just needed some work and a concrete collar poured on the drop. So get done with that and save that pipe for several more years. And then I guess last thing, Rock and Denison, it's been pretty slow with the railroad, but we're still getting it in. Should have another train, I think, next week. So.
Some of that rock you did get from Atlantic, did you notice an increase in the quality over what we used to get from them?
Absolutely. They have two pits there, and the old pit is still, we try not to haul out of that just because it's worse quality than the new pit that they have. It's a lot better rock. And I don't know how much more they can get out of the old pit. It's pretty straight up and down, and they're kind of getting to the edge of their property, so.
What about the two north of Harlan, when will that be finished?
On 1400,
Yeah.
they're pouring the head walls today.
Okay.
They should be, it'll probably be next week before it's completely wrapped up.
Before it's opened up?
Yeah, they're pouring the head walls today. They'll probably strip the forms tomorrow and then start backfilling Thursday. So it'll either be Thursday or early next week. It'll be open back up.
Okay. I want to know that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Tim Whipple from Allers and Cooney, who we hired at the past meeting to look over our proposed ordinances. He's going to give us some recommendations today. Good morning, Tim. While we're here. Okay. Looks like you've been busy.
I have. We've had a lot of discussions on the direction that we kind of initially started out on with the two ordinances that were on the last agenda, and then my thoughts on how we could improve those and make them stronger in terms of the goals that the county has. And it seemed in looking at the first of the two ordinances and its concern about hazard mitigation, emergency response, that there was a clear focus on what's safe and where should it go in this county in terms of what's safe. The problem that you confront as a local government trying to manage in this area is a whole host of federal laws on pipelines and how they're constructed and how big should the pipe be and what should the pressure be, and how far should it be buried. And PHMSA just handles it. But it does not address the route and the location. The federal government has explicitly said that's for the states to do. The states get to decide where it's going to go inside the boundaries of the state. The state of Iowa has adopted a whole statute that governs that as well. So we have over here federal regulations to not cross over into their territory, and we have state regulations to not cross into as well. But as long as you don't directly contradict what the state has said should happen with the pipeline, I think there's still some room there for the county to try to address some of the concerns that it has. And a key concern in that safety ordinance was the 1,000-foot setback that you all wanted to take a look at. And at a high level, the best way to address something like a setback, any kind of setback, is through city and county zoning. In terms of, let's not have this use too close to that use. We may not prohibit something entirely, but we're going to say something needs to be this many feet from a church or this many feet from critical public infrastructure. That's a key concern in zoning. And there's an opening in the state statute, I believe, for the utilities board and the state government to let locals have some input on, where it can go in terms of what's safe. There is a requirement of every hazardous liquid pipeline company that they address how their pipeline proposal relates to zoning and land use. So I felt like the best way to make your ordinance stronger was to make it much more clearly part of your zoning ordinance. Your zoning ordinance has long been in place, and any time that you're working on the zoning ordinance, you're supposed to be guided by your comprehensive plan. And your county has adopted a comprehensive plan as of 1998 that kind of lays out the goals of the county. And so I spent some time with your comprehensive plan looking at what was important to the communities in this county and to the county supervisors. And you've said all that right in your comprehensive plan. There's a really, I think, important section of the plan that says, without exception is the language that your comprehensive plan uses. Every community in this county cares about housing and the future development of those communities. And you really need to do that, you have to protect that 2-mile area outside of the current incorporated boundaries of the city. That's in that county area, but where the city might grow. Your new housing developments are going to come in that area. And so your comprehensive plan clearly focuses on that as a priority for development. Well, I don't think you want to be building your housing developments on top of a hazardous liquid pipe. So this ordinance creates some different framework for the setbacks and a few different setback terms. And so I sent to each of the supervisors and to the auditor a proposed version of this ordinance. And I hope you've had a chance to look at it. But after all the legal language, which takes up about 4 pages, your eyes were bleeding last night.
Yeah, whereas, I got tired of whereas for a while there.
But once you get past the whereases, past all the definitions, because all this stuff is defined at the state and federal level, you get to 8.4, under 8.4. And the key concern is how close does it come to the areas where cities can grow? How close does it come to a church or a school or a nursing home, long-term care facility or hospital? To the extent that a pipeline that's under great pressure poses a chance of rupture, you want to make sure nothing's built right on top of it. Now, it's not within the county's purview to say what the pressure should be. But I think you have the ability to say, because it's under pressure, we don't want development to be too close to it. And we don't want it to be too close to existing development. Another key concern of your comprehensive plan is that existing infrastructure and existing property uses and existing property values are all preserved and protected, and that's a valid exercise of the zoning. So there are some distances laid out here that I consider kind of a proposal, penciled in, if you will. You certainly have the ability to change these, but this ordinance lays out how far the different types of, critical structures and uses in the county can come to a hazardous pipe. Parks and recreation areas, occupied structures, critical infrastructure like electric power, generating facilities, electric transmission. When the electric system goes down, that has a real impact on people's health. You need to protect and preserve that. You don't want it too close to the drinking water treatment facilities, things like that. So that's what zoning is primarily concerned with, and that's why I felt like the ordinance that you initially had that addressed hazard mitigation and emergency response could be made stronger and could have additional setback distances included in it if it were properly crafted as a zoning ordinance according to your comprehensive plan and placed within the context of your existing zoning ordinance. And so I've had a chance to really do that with this, and I took a look at the core concern of that ordinance in terms of emergency response and mitigation plan and worked it into this ordinance in terms of a requirement that any hazardous pipeline company work with the county on emergency response. And that's another key point. The existing ordinance that you had on the agenda for the last meeting is very specifically written to carbon pipelines. And that's obviously a hot topic right now. There are many other types of hazardous liquid pipelines that PHMSA regulates that could at least theoretically come through this county. And it's good to treat all hazardous liquid pipelines in an even-handed way. And all of them have the same concern in terms of restoring the land and making sure that they don't come too close to existing uses. So this version of the ordinance broadens it a little bit so that your ordinance addresses all types of hazardous liquid pipelines and not only carbon, except for the emergency response plans, which there's not at this moment federal regulations on it. In May, the Federal Department of Transportation, the PHMSA, which sets the regulations for pipelines, announced they were going to start a rulemaking on emergency response for carbon pipelines, but they haven't finished that process yet, and those administrative rules aren't done. So this ordinance tries to set that in place for carbon pipelines until PHMSA's regulations are complete. And what would happen is, as long as PHMSA's aren't done, you have a set of regulations that would go in place. And when PHMSA's are complete, then any the pipeline would just make a showing to the county that it complies with those regulations. And then it's supposed to provide to you a plan for how they'll work with your emergency response and your law enforcement and all of that. So that's all included in the ordinance. It's just kind of restructured within the zoning ordinance. And it's made a permit application requirement before you get the permit. The permit is called a conditional use permit. It's already provided for in your zoning ordinance. In counties that do more zoning, and counties that have more development, this is a lot more of an issue. There's a lot more conditional use permits issued, but your zoning ordinance does provide for it. There'd be two types of permits that are required. One would be from the pipeline company, that it meets the separation requirements that are laid out in the ordinance. The second would be required of any property owner that wants to negotiate a private easement with the pipeline company. They would, before executing that agreement, need to get a conditional use permit, just like the pipeline company, from the Board of Adjustment. They would come in and say, we've been negotiating with the pipeline company, it's going to cross our land, and we're negotiating a line location. That's the point in time where the county can step in and say, hold on, before you execute that agreement, we want you to show us that it's going to meet the separation requirements. That it doesn't come this close to a church, that doesn't come this close to a hospital or school. You want to avoid a mass casualty event. That's your concern.
Kind of like the counties do on the master matrix environments.
That's exactly right. It's very much analogous to that. There are different state and federal statutes that come and play over top of it, but at the zoning level, it's the same type of concern and the same type of process. And so I felt that it was better to utilize existing authority, zoning, existing process in place, zoning, existing comprehensive plan, and key uses and concerns that you already have. Not only rely on home rule authority, which the current proposal of the ordinance that you had did.
So do you feel like our comprehensive plan needs to be updated now at the same time, or?
I do recommend that. It's certainly good as times change to keep your comprehensive plan up to date.
It's been a long time.
You know,
That's 20-some years.
there's no requirement that you do it, but to the extent that your zoning has to follow the comprehensive plan, it makes it a lot easier to be responsive as a county if the comprehensive plan keeps changing as your county changes, as population grows, or more likely as it shifts, you know, as the rural areas empty out a little bit more and people gravitate more to county seat towns. You know, so you have demographic trends happening, you have economic development trends happening.
It was interesting looking at that though, even though it's been that long ago, one of the number one priorities was housing development. And what do we have coming to us all the time is how we're going to address housing. It's still one of the top priorities out there.
It's a key concern for the whole state of Iowa.
Yep.
And it's something that...
So that hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse in a way.
Yep.
It's gotten worse in a way because the cost of materials and construction really aren't cheaper in rural areas. But wage bases outside of major population centers, you know, wages just aren't as high. And so it's harder to price new units at a level that's affordable for people in rural areas if the wages aren't there. But the cost of materials keeps going up, supply chain problems. So that issue has only gotten more critical. And every 10 years or so after a new census is maybe a good time to think about doing your comprehensive plan so that you can catch those demographic changes and trends and economic development trends. At any rate, I wouldn't change that comprehensive plan now as we move forward with this zoning ordinance, but it's just something to put on the to-do list. It's a good recommendation. The current plan you have in place, there are certainly some things in it that would still be of concern for you if you had a new one today. Housing would still be a concern. There's a section on emergency management and hazard mitigation that would still clearly be a concern for you. That's a requirement of the state that you do that planning with emergency management. So there's certainly some things in the plan that guide us where we need to be with this ordinance.
Another priority there was preserving land values and agricultural lands.
Correct.
And that's still there.
Correct. Anytime you have a use that people don't want to locate next to, that has the potential to impact property values, resale values. So, zoning exists as a tool for you to manage that. So I've had a chance to really tackle one of the ordinances in detail. That's the emergency management and the safety-based regulations and work that into this zoning ordinance. The other ordinance that you had really addresses how to do damages for non-agricultural lands. But it looks like the current proposed route through the county, I didn't get a copy of the maps, but it looks like it's all going through agriculturally zoned areas for the most part. So I think the impact on non-ag lands of a pipeline is going to be relatively low. That's the primary zoned area that's already going through. So I think your safety-based ordinance is probably of a higher priority for you to take a look at and work on first. And if you want me to move forward and tackle that second ordinance on the non-agricultural lands and the damages, we can do that. And it might be appropriate to work that into the zoning ordinance as well. But in 2 weeks, I really just didn't have time to do both ordinances to that level of detail, so I really focused on the safety one since the last meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna want you to move forward with the other
With the other one as
two.
well, okay. So we can do that. Now, to do a zoning change, there's a very particular process you have to follow under state law. And so it needs to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission first. And according to your zoning ordinance, they need to be given at least 30 days to study it. And they need to hold a public hearing on it. Those commissioners need to hold a public hearing on it, take public feedback, have a public meeting. They really should record it and take note of all the comments that are made and documents that are received. And then they need to compile a report with recommendations back to you all. And then you need to consider what the Plan and Zone Commission has recommended. And then you need to hold another public hearing in order to do it as a final ordinance. Now, you're not bound by the recommendations in the report from the Plan and Zone Commission, but it's a good process, and you may find that they have good recommendations for changes to the ordinance for you. So I'd say let the process work its way through, keep an open mind about what the Plan and Zone Commission recommends to you, and in the end, this is really just a draft. It's not in front of you for consideration today because it needs to go through this additional couple steps in the process, but it will be back in front of you in a similar or substantially the same form, depending on what happens with the recommendation from the Plan and Zone Commission.
So once it goes to planning and zoning, then we really cannot and should not set any public hearing dates until we get that. And then, 'cause we don't know if it's going to be at least 30 days, it could be 60 days or whatever.
Well, you really can't hold a public hearing on this if Plan and Zone is going to recommend changes to it.
Right.
Right. So, and your ordinance says they need to be given 30 days at least to do that.
Plus we have notices.
You have notices to publish, and there's a lot of boxes to check in terms of doing it the right way. So this really can't happen super quickly. And in fact, Iowa law is designed so that it can't happen too
Right.
quickly. Public's got to.
What's the minimum time frame then? If 30 days for them, and
Then they put a
then
report
back to
together.
us. Okay.
That report together, bring it to us, and then we
So
decide.
you gotta go through this process.
So you're saying we're starting the process all over again?
Yes.
So a minimum of 3 months?
I would estimate 3 months.
Minimum.
That's what, at minimum, and I've suggested to Steve and to Tony, the zoning administrator, that you start with a date and try to work backward from that. And
So we get our notices out and stuff.
Yeah, and it really depends on, there's no state deadlines driving it. It's really a matter of the capacity that your staff have to do this work, the capacity of the commission, their ability to set meetings and hold the hearings and make the report, the recommendations, people's availability, their vacations. All you have to work around all that in order get this done by the date you want it done, so.
Just Tony's got to get his board, planning and zoning board together, have a public hearing.
Yep, that's right. And then there'll be other public hearings. And you, Mr. Chair, committed to holding all 3 public hearings.
I'm just going to say, yeah, we've committed as a board, we're going to hold all 3 hearings. During the process, once it goes through P&Z, and we have public hearings along the way, gets feedback, the ordinance can change at any point up to the final reading.
You don't have to start the 30 days, I mean,
You don't have to restart the whole process, but
As long as it's minor changes.
if
If
you
it's
make,
major changes, then you're starting over.
yeah, if you make substantial changes that people really haven't had the kind of time that they're supposed to be able to have.
Especially if it's an addition more or less a subtraction.
Right, so without specifics, it's hard to make pronouncements, but I would say if you made some, for example, minor refinements to the setback requirements, but you didn't change the structure of the ordinance, there's some fees in here, if you made some minor changing to the fees, that's the kind of thing that would require you to restart the process. But if you wanted to go back and not do a zoning ordinance, well, then we're kind of back where we were 2 weeks ago, we had to really.
Yeah, no, we need to go through the proper steps.
So.
Don't you guys agree?
Depends on the magnitude of the changes, is really the answer to your question.
do we have a full zoning committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we just upgraded that here a few months ago. Yeah. And actually, talking about the comprehensive plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, we haven't talked about this, but it was about 3 years ago, we knew we needed to upgrade the plan, and then COVID came, and not that I'm using it for excuse, but it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. But a lot of the things that are in it today are still issues today, too, that was in the past.
So the upshot of that is you have on the agenda an action item to receive this proposed ordinance and refer it to plan and zone. And then consideration to cancel the public hearings for the other 2 ordinances, take no further action on it at this time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. Do I have a motion to receive the proposed ordinance and refer the hazardous liquid pipeline ordinance to Planning and Zoning Commission?
Motion.
Motion by Charlie. Second by Darren. Any other questions or input for Tim on that subject? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Consideration to cancel the public hearings that we had set, they were initially set for today and the 23rd, correct?
Yes.
And take no further action on ordinances 2022-2 and 2022-3. That's your recommendation also?
Yeah, that's the recommendation.
The ordinances just disappeared then?
Yep, they would disappear.
Numbers disappeared.
And we would start with this one, and Tim will start working on the second ordinance. Okay. Do I have a motion to cancel the public hearings, no further action?
Make that motion.
Motion by Darren,
Second.
second by Charlie. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we'll be turned over to Tony and DNF now, and you'll get back to us as your steps progress and keep us informed on your process there. Okay. If you have any questions, please reach out to Tim. Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
There are copies of the ordinance up here.
Yeah.
Anyone's interested?
The ordinance is put on file today as a proposed draft, and so it is a public document. So if anybody needs that, can get it through Mark, or I'm sure it'll be on the website.
It will be posted on the website.
Once
It's
the
down,
website's up.
when I left the office, the website was, but it will be posted on the website also.
Okay. Marcus, do you have any?
I haven't had a lot of chance to look at it, but I will look at it Friday when I can.
Okay. Or any other? Just want to make sure you got any thoughts or concerns.
Yeah, none of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Last on the agenda is Supervisors Committee reports. I don't have anything. I got a couple meetings coming up this week, and our ambulance ad hoc committee that I've been on, did not have a meeting this last week, and our meeting this week is Thursday, so I don't have anything new to update on that. You guys have anything?
I don't have anything, but I did question you, have we come up with a safety and wellness, are we going to act on that? Did the safety committee come up with a recommendation for our new, or is that something you waited to?
We haven't had a meeting lately.
Okay.
Do you guys have, I mean, Bryce is here, Brandon, you guys
Yeah,
have
we have
anything?
2 people that we want to take those positions, so,
Okay, will you guys be bringing a recommendation back, or how's that gonna work?
yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
Does that need to wait till the end of the year then? Is that how?
No, I would say we want to get somebody on board while Bryce is still here.
Okay.
Just let me know and I can get it on the next meeting.
Yeah, get it on.
You know,
the
see if I
next-
can.
That's fine.
Okay.
If it's done, if it's not done, it's not done.
Brandon, between Brandon and Bryce, I'll get back to you. Okay? Any comments from the public before I adjourn? Yes.
Well, the safety part, this pipeline is supposed to go through our farm, and we don't want it, and there's lots of safety issues. And I know that, I get it, that you're supposed to, you know, you don't want it by a town or something with lots of population, because, you know, it could rupture, and those people, pipelines are not the same. They, you know, if this one ruptures, you're asphyxiated, you know, and if you're close by. Well, there's not that many of us living on our farm, but it's our entire family, or most of the family. And I just am very, very concerned, that, like it was just in the paper this week, by the Sierra Club, that they're not only getting these easements, but they're having people sign, and then they get the whole farm. Not just for the setback of so many feet, but they're signing easements to have your farm, your whole, not just the strip through it, but the whole thing, an easement for it. And people aren't even, I'm like, how is this even being permitted? I mean, this is our land, our family's had it for generations.
Right.
We don't want it, and how are they, but they're gonna use them, they say, you don't want it, you get eminent domain, and you gotta take it, you know, then you just get whatever they give you. We don't want it there at any cost.
Julie, that's a big concern of this board, and that is being addressed, trying to address that in our ordinance with setbacks from residents, from animal confinements, like Tim said, to vulnerable places, the hospitals, whatever, and preserve growth areas that we have set up 20-some years ago, you know, so.
But it's kind of like,
Our
this place
concern-
that's failed technology, it doesn't even really work.
Our concern is addressing if it is approved. It's the other side's concern is as far as stopping it completely.
Yeah.
We have no control over that.
No, we're just trying to
So,
prepare for it.
so if we do get it, we're just trying to make sure that it's done
Yeah, and we
properly.
appreciate that.
I have a question right here.
Yeah, is it, the board passed this where eminent domain can be used?
They have applied for it.
They haven't did that yet.
Okay, well, I've seen some articles come up where Summit was going after them, they had like 40% of the people in these counties, and they were
4 counties, yeah.
gonna present this to the state board.
They have applied for it, yes.
Okay,
They
and
have.
at this point, it hasn't gone through.
No.
Okay, that was my.
I would think so.
Norm, Tim can answer that, how that
Yeah.
process works.
I'll talk about that for a minute, just at a high level.
Yeah.
So, the state entirely is the one that decides whether hazardous liquid pipelines get to use eminent domain or not. And so, the county board doesn't have the authority to prevent it or grant it. And there's a point at which the state will, some people will say the state has the authority to dictate entirely where the line goes through the routing and siting process. It's possible for the county and other counties that are impacted to intervene in this proceeding and tell the board has the ability to impose conditions on the state permit, and so counties can ask the board to abide by the local zoning as one of the conditions of the permit. And so I think that's a path that I would recommend to Shelby County that they take. that the supervisors consider doing. Once you get a zoning ordinance.
Intervention?
An intervention in the state proceedings.
Okay.
First get a zoning ordinance in place, and then intervene in the proceedings and explain to the board the concerns you all have about setbacks. Explain what your ordinance does and how you're trying to manage it in your county as a land use problem, and explain that to the board and ask the board in the terms of the state permit to require the company to comply with local zoning laws. That's a reasonable request. But like the ability to fully dictate it and control it doesn't fully rest with the county or with cities.
I was led to believe that if someone got, let's just pick a number, 70% or something, and then they would present that to the board would automatically go with it because the majority of the people, they would see it that way.
It's not an automatic thing. There's no magic number, there's no 60, 70, 80%. But the board is reluctant to grant eminent domain to a pipeline to a company that has a relatively low number of voluntary easements negotiated. Because the smaller that number is, the larger it is the number of people that would have to have that eminent domain exercised. And that becomes a very unpalatable prospect politically for the legislature and the board. They'd really much rather have it be the last few holdouts than to just eminent domain an entire pipeline through the state. This is a bigger issue than just Shelby County and a bigger issue than just Summit. There's actually 3 carbon pipelines proposed in different areas of the state. And so, you know, whatever proceeding goes first may kind of set the template for the others. And it looks like Summit's proceeding a little bit faster, but it has more pipeline miles. So perhaps the other pipelines are able to negotiate more voluntary easements sooner and get. The board has proceedings like a court, and so they'll schedule a public hearing where it'll be more like a court case than it is like a public hearing where people show up and make public comment. It's a little bit more like a court case. Evidence is presented, people are represented by counsel, there's witnesses and depositions and things like that. That will happen for Summit. And property owners and other impacted parties like counties and cities can intervene and make their arguments to the board and present their evidence. So we're not yet there at that point. The board hasn't scheduled this hearing. And once the hearing is scheduled and all the evidence is taken, it'll be some time before they issue a final decision. So there's a lot to go, a lot of process.
What are you hearing, like, would that possibly be?
It could be, the board is actually meeting at 9 o'clock today, and the utilities board. And on their agenda is a discussion item to discuss when they might schedule a hearing in the Summit matter. And so I don't yet know the results of their discussion, if they publicly discussed, if it might be next March or April. There's some ability of the company to kind of control that process based on when they come back to the board and start making motions and asking for things. So it's not fully determined. We may know a little bit more based on the meeting that the utilities board had today, and I've got people watching that meeting, and I will let the supervisors know. But best guess, at least 6 months from now, before there's a hearing.
So Tim, they wouldn't act on this request for eminent domain before they would act on the approval of?
They gotta get the permit first.
They've got to go.
They would
Got to
get
go
the-
through this process of collecting evidence and testimony and all that. And at the end of that process, just like a court issues an order, the board will issue an order. And the order will say which parcels that their pipeline company is given eminent domain over, what the terms of the permit are. All of that happens at the end of the process.
Okay, so the eminent domain request will happen at the same, approval will happen at the same time as the approval for the pipeline.
Yeah,
So-
if you go back and look at the proceedings for Dakota Access, the board issued a 174-page order, and it lists the parcels that are in the domain, which county they're in, and it's all there.
You're obviously very well read on the contract that they're going around and wanting us to sign. Can you elaborate on what liability we as the property owners still have.
I haven't seen the contracts that they're presenting to private landowners, and so I really can't address them. And even if I had seen one, it's not something I can do to advise you on your legal rights. You really need to form an attorney-client relationship with your own attorney and have it reviewed if you haven't.
Okay, well, be the county attorney.
Mike, okay.
I live about a half a mile away from the proposed pipeline up at West Dahlia. And every neighbor I spoke to, nobody is in favor of it. Last year, Audubon County put about 70 windmills up. And they have to trench the power line to every windmill to get back to the grid, you know. It's a 34,000 volt line, plus fiber optics. And I talked to a dirt contractor a week ago last Saturday morning over at the Audubon Southside Welding Shop that I know quite well. So when they trenched in these high voltage power lines and the fiber optic, the contractors cut through the neighbors, all the farmers' tile lines. This dirt contractor got the job, the power company hired him this spring. He came in, water's bubbling to the top of the ground, the tile lines were cut, weren't being hooked up, and he got the job to hook them all back up. Over 30 tile lines he had to fix. And him and his brother, it takes time because they got a probe, because there's a 34,000 volt power line down below. There's a ribbon at the top for locating, and then they probe down 16, 18 inches is like the fiber optic. Below that, another 12, 14, 16 inches is the voltage line. They took their time, they had the probe. It was a nice job he got. The power company had to hire this independent dirt contractor to come in, fix all the tile lines. Farmers weren't happy because they had all these wet spots. The one tile line drains the side hills. They had to put a sump pump in that trench for 6 hours to pump all the water before they got that water level to come down so they could work down in the muck to fix the tile line. So when you put these lines in the ground and the miles and miles and miles that they're proposing to put in, all the tile lines that are that's just one item here we're talking about. Fiber optics, the whole works. I think it's a big joke. I wouldn't give you a dime for this whole deal. That cavern up in South Dakota or North Dakota, wherever you're going to pump the product, every vessel, sooner or later, fills up. When it's full, then where does the product go? A 5-gallon bucket, you fill it up, it's full. A big gas container down at Council Bluffs, Williams Pipeline, you can only put so much product in that tank. When it's full, it's full. This cavern someday is going to fill up. Then where's this product going to go after that? I'm totally against it, and I'm not happy to hear what my neighbors are saying. And it doesn't affect my ground because we're a half a mile away, my family's property. But I'm speaking for a lot of people here today that are not very happy, that haven't come to this meeting. I know this is a supervisors meeting, and you have a job to do here too, and I've never met you before, Tim. But that's what I got to say about this whole deal, and I spoke my piece.
Yep, and Mike, I appreciate the comments, and we're going to be having, at some point, there'll be 3 public hearings on this, and people are allowed, they'll get 3 minutes to speak, and please come back if you have any concerns then. That goes for anybody. And John, I think you had one more, and then we're going to adjourn. Did you have a question, John? Nope, you're good?
I would just say, I would
I think your figures and their advertisements now, I heard an advertisement yesterday on the radio. They're saying that the plants selling ethanol will make more profit if it's with a carbon pipeline. I think it's 100%.
Yep.
Then the whole thing is a bunch of, I don't know what they are, thieves out there trying to get money in their own pockets.
A handful of
Not for the good of anybody, but themselves.
A handful of politicians and a handful of big corporations got so much money, they think they can come in here and run over tens of thousands of property owners that have no say so, and it's a joke, and the old saying goes,
It's gotta be stopped.
money talks and walks. That's the old saying from years ago, and I'm so fed up with the. And I'm
Just a reminder, guys, where you need to voice your concerns, I get the feeling that many people, property owners, are going to the UIB and voicing their concerns on their website. But it's the people that are landowners that it's not affecting their land. They're the ones that need to stand behind their.
And your legislators.
Well, it could be rerouted. They've already rerouted a couple times, so a half a mile is not safe.
But go to those UIB, to their website and voice your concerns.
Webster County Fairgrounds is where it's gonna be, Fort Dodge. February or March is what they're telling me at this point. So it's Fort Dodge.
Okay, thanks everybody today. Appreciate all your comments. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.